Welcome back to Graymalkin Lane, the podcast where queer friends and allies gather to review and discuss the original X-Men comics from the 1960s. Last week, we reviewed X-Men number 22, Divided We Fall, where the Avengers foe Count Nefaria showed up surprisingly, used some illusions to gather the X-Men in Central Park, where they were then attacked by a bunch of nonsensical villains from the 1960s. We'll see all of them again in today's issue, but as a reminder, Eel, Unicorn, Scarecrow, Porcupine, and Plant Man. The X-Men were all captured because Divided We Fall. It was in the title. Captain America, Count Nefaria tried to force them to work with him. They refused, and he ended the issue with a threat against Washington, D.C. So we're going to pick that up in today's issue, which is X-Men number 23. It is called To Save a City, ! Because all the titles back then had exclamation points. This issue is from August 1966. There's so much fun stuff in it. We're gonna have our three guests each introduce themselves. Today, the question I have for you guys, let us know your names, let us know your gender pronouns. And then today's question is, give us a soap opera plot line from the X-Men that you just love and adore. Now, before I turn the time over to you guys, I just have to nerd out for just a moment. We have a special guest on today. Mr. Josh Trujillo is here. I'm a huge fan of his work. And Josh, we are so thrilled that you are hanging out with us today. So thank you for being here on our little podcast.
Having me. Yeah, thank you.
Our esteemed honor. Okay, so Daryl, do you want to begin with introductions?
Sure, my name is Daryl. I have the he, him pronouns, and I think my favorite soapy moment throws back to the Dark Phoenix saga when Jean and Scott are going through all of their drama, but particularly when Jean was dancing with Jason Wingard in the club, I believe, and Scott is all torn up about it, and he is deep in his feels that he has been ditched by Jean, and she's dressing real differently at that point as well. So I think that really just spun out the drama of that moment, of that arc, and then it sort of carried forward that soapy feeling even into today's comics, where now they're pretty much in the unofficial throuple with Wolverine. All of that situation speaks very Dynasty, very Dallas to me. So that's my pick.
And then Bethany, go ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Bethany, they, them pronouns. And I think my favorite, I had a really hard time with this because there are just so many, but I think my favorite soapy moment is the big reveal that Mystique is Nightcrawler's parent in X-Men Unlimited number 4. I loved the sort of the three-way, and her confession about trying to murder him when he was a baby. It's just, she chucked her baby off a cliff. You can't get any more soap opera than that. And it was just, it was very heightened emotions and that fantastic art. So I think that was definitely my favorite moment, especially because it's, again, it has the reverberations throughout the series. I think it's going to be dealt with is not English. It's going to be dealt with. It's going to be dealt with in the Inferno series that's going on, and I'm really excited about that. I'm secretly hoping that it's revealed that Destiny is Nightcrawler's mother and Mystique is Nightcrawler's other parent, father. Having Mystique as a trans character would just be fantastic. Anyway, yeah. That's it for me.
We had our trans friend Anne on several episodes ago, and she talked about Mystique kind of being her ideal growing up. Because if you can change your shape to be who you really are, I think there's a lot of representation there. Josh, go ahead.
Oh gosh, I'm captivated by the ongoing drama between Colossus and Kitty Pryde, whether it be Colossus having a child in the Savage Land or them getting close to getting married. And Kitty's like, the ring went through her finger because she couldn't like focus on the wedding. So really anything that makes their relationship more complicated. Because I'm like an anti-shipper for Colossus and Kitty. So any wrench that can get thrown at them, I'm like, yes.
That's fantastic. My name is Chad Anderson. I use he, him. I think I grew up with sisters who watched a lot of soap operas. nothing screams soap opera more to me than an evil twin. And so just to wrap it up in like 30 seconds, Cyclops is in love with Jean, but he marries her clone and they have a baby who is dying. So he gets sent to the future and then comes back as a grown-up with his own evil twin. There's so much. And anytime we have like a surprise parent reveal or like a long lost sibling, right? The Summers family has it all. It's it's particularly delicious. Daryl, tell us a little bit about you and what you're working on right now.
Sure. So I just launched a new podcast, actually, which is going to cover the Wheel of Time television series on Amazon. So my partner and I are recording it together. He read all of the books, which all the props to him, because it is a long series and I gave up halfway through. So he's bringing a lot of knowledge to the table. I'm sort of the novice when it comes to it. So if you want to check it out, we are over at Two Rivers, Two Takes. We're on Instagram, and we are on all of your favorite podcast platforms as well. So the series comes out 6 days from today. We're going to cover all the episodes and then whatever else we feel like. So it's an exciting new project.
I was in college for 6 years and I read those books all the way through college. That like captures my college experience. Two Rivers is the town where Rand al'Thor comes from. That's a brilliant title. I'm excited to listen to what you're doing. Bethany, tell us a little bit about you and what you're working on.
So I've just released my third novel, The Hungry and the Lost, with Parthian Books, which is a Welsh publisher. So I've been busy promoting it, and before then editing it, which was a nightmare. Honestly, I wrote it very quickly, and the editing process took forever. And I'm also writing a series of essays for Comic Watch, the Comic Watch website, using Lord Raglan's Hero Index as a means of measuring Marvel characters and comparing them to their mythic counterparts. And it's really fun. I really love getting into the nitty gritty of it, the academia. And other than that, I'm teaching and parenting I've got a 20-month-old son, and it's really difficult to get anything done when he's running amok. But yeah, so he was not conducive to, he wasn't particularly helpful when it came to writing or editing, but he does give me a lot of material to work with. So,
can I share with our fans what happened a few weeks ago? I
yes,
assume this is
please.
fine. Bethany was going to guest host with us a few weeks back, and she had to message me at the last minute, like, my child just headbutted me, and I can't appear on camera.
He cracked my cheekbone. So I had to go into the emergency room, and the doctor was asking me what happened, and I said it was my son's hard little head in my horrible Chinese. And I'm in China, and they didn't believe it until they x-rayed it and saw that it was actually a fissure in my cheek. It was horrible. Yeah.
That's a terrible thing to laugh at, but I've had my child give me a bloody nose from the same thing, so I get it.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to plug except on Graymalkin, we've got some incredible guests coming up. We have so much fun stuff coming up in the next few months. And then I plugged this once before, but the documentary I made, Dog Valley, is still available on iTunes and Apple and YouTube. So if you'd like to see that, it's wonderful. But let's extend a very warm welcome to our special guest today, Mr. Josh Trujillo. Josh has been working, I'll let you introduce yourself, of course, but he's been working in the writing field for a long time, doing video games and comics from all different spaces. Everything from Dream Daddy, if you guys have played that. If you're gay, you should play it. If you're if you're not, it's fun anyway. To Farmville 3, his books Love Machines, and I played the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale games, which was so much fun. And then he's done some really, really incredible work at Marvel that we'd like to talk about for a minute too. Josh, tell us a little bit about your work, what you're working on now, and then we'll talk about your Marvel stuff more specifically.
Yeah, so I do like a wide breadth of stuff. I do video games, I do comics, as you said. I definitely try to focus on queer stuff for my comic work, a lot of humor, a lot of fantasy. I've been kind of a mix of the nitty gritty and the cosmic for my Marvel work so far, which I like that balance. Basically, I like to constantly challenge myself and find new genre and new characters to play with. Video game wise, I don't get to be as choosy, but I get to work on some cool characters. Guardians of the Galaxy, I did a Batman game for Telltale. I have a couple of big projects that I can't talk about yet, which is like the worst thing to say, but Farmville 3, a game that you would not think has writing, I spent a good 3 years on and off working on. So if you see any cows named after my friends, it's because I did that. And just really whatever comes my way.
I love that. And you did you work on the Wolf Among Us Part 2 game as well?
I worked on the unreleased Wolf Among Us Part 2. So
is it ever coming out?
They're working on a Part 2, but it is not my Part 2, just to confuse things even further.
I'm a big Fables fan as well, which is such a great series.
Yeah.
Now, Josh, you first came out on my radar as a fan, and let me just note, I love being in rooms full of like educated queer nerds. It's my favorite thing. So I'm so happy you guys are on. Josh, you first came across my attention, at least. There's a recent series in Marvel called The United States of Captain America. Now, I know prior to that you had done kind of a side series on or at least 5 or 6 pages on the Warriors 3 or Warriors 4.
Yeah.
So when the United States of Captain America came out, it's a series where Captain America, Falcon, and Winter Soldier are traveling around the country trying to stop some obscure villains, including the hate monger, which is literally the essence of Adolf Hitler, from corrupting some kind of small town inspirational versions of Captain America. And we get to see Black female Captain America and a Native American Captain America. But Josh, you were responsible for creating Mr. Aaron Fisher. Tell us about Aaron and your creation of him.
Yeah, so Aaron is a teenage runaway. He's from Missouri. He's the Captain America of the railways, so he gets around by traveling on the rails. He's just kind of like he's really motivated, really plucky, I think is actually probably a good term for him. He's a little bit of like a scrapper too. He's got that bruiser Wolverine mentality at times, but he's a kid. He's 19 years old. He has dumb tattoos. He's getting more of them. He likes to go dancing. And I just adore him.
So you got this opportunity. Did they ask you to create a gay Captain America specifically? Was that kind of the pitch?
Yeah, I was approached with the idea of the United States of Captain America, and I really loved it. And they wanted a gay Captain America. They wanted someone who was connected to the railroad in a way, which was an odd request, but I really kind of dug it because it gave me a lot of room to kind of focus on his status as a runaway. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of dig into some issues the Marvel comics maybe don't normally talk about. There's a big youth homelessness problem in the country, especially for LGBT youth. So this was like actually an avenue to maybe kind of shine some light on that.
I was really fascinated by the railway connection. So that makes sense. I'm like, if you could choose a queer Cap, I would think, the Castro in San Francisco, but here's a guy in overalls with a kind of a trash can Captain America shield lid running around on the railways. It was really fun to read.
Yeah, he's a superhero by way of Mamma Mia for sure with the overall.
What's the response to Aaron Fisher been?
It's been incredible. I wasn't anticipating, when you write something, you hope that it gets a reaction, but the day it came out, it completely blew up in a way I hadn't anticipated. And I don't think Marvel anticipated it either, because it was in like Rolling Stone, it was in political magazines, it was on Time Magazine, it was on the Today Show, it was on TMZ. My mom called me and she's like, "You're on TMZ," and I was like, "What?" And so like Aaron Fisher was there. Which was like completely blown me away. And I think the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. Now, you obviously get that like blowback from maybe more conservative points of view of like, you're making Captain America gay. And I'm like, yes, we are. Thank you.
And you got to work with Jan Bazaldua, right? How was that?
Oh, Jan's amazing. Her designs for the character were spot on from the very beginning. And she's able to like get so much emotion out of the script. There's a lot of like grittiness, earthiness, and so she just did an incredible job with that.
Daryl and Bethany, did you guys get a chance to read The United States of Captain America or Aaron Fisher? What were some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. The energy was really good. And as you said, the character being connected to the railways. When I lived in America, I traveled a lot on the by rail, and seeing a character that was so wound up in that And as you said, with the LGBT homelessness problem, the rise of LGBT homeless youth is it's an interesting thing to see in a mainstream comic. I was so excited and still am, honestly.
Yeah, I think the expectation was would be more of like a West Hollywood kind of party gag.
Yeah.
And I definitely wanted to shy away from that and give him a little bit more earthiness, because I wanted to reflect
Yeah.
the reality that I experienced growing up in a more suburban town, kind of dealing with living living in the closet and living with that and wanting
Yeah.
to run away.
He's got he breathes more than most, I think, more than most modern characters. He's got a vitality to him, and I think that really shows that lived experience.
Yeah, I really like his sense of justice, that is what's really driving him to be more than just himself, that he's trying to serve the community and make it better. That's what really spoke to me when I was reading his character. And it's interesting that they approached you with the railway perspective, but I mean, we just had the infrastructure bill passed. So maybe there's some political motivations there, and we can improve those railways for him. So once he gets more renown and it continues on, cough, Marvel, cough, make it a continue. Then maybe, he'll take advantage of our renewed infrastructure in the United States.
Yeah, this was all kind of part of Christopher Cantwell, who's the main writer for the United States of Captain America. Aaron Fisher is actually a name that he came up with based off of a childhood friend of his. So it was kind of it was a joint effort between Christopher, Jan, and I, for sure. But I love him so much.
I'm a big Christopher Cantwell fan too. His Iron Man work right now is one of my favorite spaces. I love obscure characters, and he's pulling in so many obscure characters.
Oh, Frogman.
Oh yeah. I love me some Frogman. He just had an epic story with Stiltman as well, which is so good. When it comes to Aaron Fisher specifically, one of the things that stood out that I love, in order to appreciate a character like this, I have to take myself back into like my closeted youth, where there was just no representation. And in the X-Men, we have a lot of queer representation now. But to see a Captain America character who is out and gay and very sex positive and just kind of loving his life and loving himself, I wish like 17-year-old me many years ago could go back and read this story. I think it's so powerful. And the other Captain Americas that are introduced in the United States of Captain America series are also really unique and specific and surprising in their characterizations. I hope we see all of these characters again. Now, Josh, you have more recently, just in the last few weeks, been able to announce that you're working on a Marvel Infinity comic featuring everyone's favorite gay couple, Wiccan and Hulkling, who have just come out of a massive amount of story attention, with Hulkling becoming the Emperor of the Kree Skull Alliance, and their very public wedding, the murder of the Scarlet Witch, and all of their tie-ins there. What was it like to pick up the reins on these characters, and how did you decide what type of story you wanted to tell with them?
It was definitely a joy and super intimidating, I'll say. Billy and Teddy fans are in a class of their own. I think definitely it's like X-Men fans and Wiccan and Hulkling fans have that intensity and that huge love for the characters. I knew that they were coming out of a lot of these massive cosmic events. I knew they were going to be in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, and I just wanted to give them a little bit of room to breathe. It felt like they haven't had a chance to relax because they're constantly getting swept up in the center of the Marvel Universe right now, which is amazing to have two queer characters doing that. But I want to know what their inner lives are like a little bit. He's the king of space now, so there's a lot of story potential there. Just like, how does that change the relationship dynamic as well?
So the series, you said, I think it's going to run 4 issues. The first 2 have come out. Maybe the third one may even be out before this episode drops. But in the first issue, we get to see this delightful scene with Billy and Teddy, or Hulkling and Wiccan, sitting down with North Star and Kyle and Iceman for kind of a little gay brunch. And the dialogue is so much fun. You get Iceman's humor just right. You get North Star and Kyle like talking about what it's like to be a gay couple, working in a gay relationship. How did you decide on that scene? I love it so much.
Whenever we see queer characters together, it's usually in like a Pride special where they're all marching together, or like, you know what I mean? We don't really get to see them talk to each other. It's a lot of like, we're here, we're queer, we're proud. And I'm like, well, what are they actually saying to each other? And North Star and Kyle are two characters that have been on my radar for a long time. Kyle in particular fascinates me because North Star is like the perfect man in many ways. And like, what does Kyle bring to the table? And it's like, he tolerates North Star's attitude. The only one that can rein him in. I wanted that generational play because North Star and Kyle are slightly older. They're a little more settled in their marriage, and they have a little bit of wisdom to impart. And then Bobby is like our hopelessly single example of that too.
You had already agreed to be on the podcast when I read this issue, but there's a moment, despite the fact that I'm an educated professional, I love a good innuendo and I love to laugh. And there's a moment in your issue where Iceman says, "Is anyone going to eat my pie?" as he holds his pie. Like, oh, Josh and I are going to get along well. I love a good pun. Daryl and Bethany, did you have reactions to this Infinity comic?
Yeah, I really like it. I like the Infinity format, and I'm interested to hear from you, Josh, how it differs writing for something that is exclusively electronic and such a different format because you're scrolling down, which is something they busted out a couple months ago for Marvel Unlimited. And it's a really cool approach. So did that change the way that you write in terms of characters?
I hadn't had the opportunity to write for that infinite scroll format before, but it was a real learning experience. In a comic, you have things like panel size or page turns that can really like dictate how you're supposed to read it and the pacing. And you don't necessarily have that in an infinite scroll comic. It's kind of, you're always chasing the bottom of the screen and you always need something visually to draw you in. And so Jodi Nishijima is the artist. She did a story for the United States of Captain America as well with Ariel Gayani, and Alyssa Wong was the writer. But she is a master of this format already. I mean, some of the pages, I guess we call them pages, but they're not scrolls. But she just did a phenomenal job of taking my script and kind of reimagining it and repacing it to fit kind of more of a webtoons Tapas style. As for maybe like what kind of story I wanted to tell with it, the format really lends itself, I think, to maybe a softer form of storytelling. There is action in my story, but I think a lot of the dynamic is very much relationship based, love based, and interplay between characters. And just a lot of interesting things you can do with the format, like backgrounds. You kind of have this idea that like the panels exist within the page, and then you can have this like beautiful illustrated border that if you read Fables with Mark Buckingham, you get an idea of what kind of detail and attention you can put in the background and how it informs the story.
Bethany, did you want to talk through anything? I'm sorry, Daryl, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just wanted to thank you for being able to bring these characters up because I don't know about other readers out there, but I feel that we've lost a lot of our queer storytelling in recent months with Guardians of the Galaxy coming to an end and X Factor coming to an end.
Yeah, that one hurt.
I was really pleased to see that this is one of the main titles when it comes to the Infinity comics, and being able to highlight, like you said, a softer story. It is really working on the characters. It is not a beat within a larger arc in a team book. It is really focused on them. And the first two issues that are out are really phenomenal. And I'm really excited to read the conclusion too. I'll be sad that there's a conclusion. But yeah, I'm really excited to read the next one every single week.
Well, and this series also seems to feature, we don't know for sure, but Agatha Harkness, who we all love from WandaVision. So I'm really excited to see where it goes. We have these stories of it seems like issue 2 is taking a turn of what would their lives could be, or we don't quite know what's happening yet, but I'm really excited to see what comes up next, Josh, as a fan. Bethany, did you have anything you wanted to say here?
Yes, I just had a question. Which character was the easiest to get into for you in terms of writing? Which character was the easiest for you to connect with and the voice you heard the most clearly? And which was the least, which was the most difficult?
You
It's
know, I came in thinking that Billy would
uh,
be the easiest one to write for. And I think historically, Billy gets a lot more attention than Teddy does. Maybe it's
yeah.
because he has his insecurities and it's easier for the writer to kind of project onto that. And I do think I had a good grasp of Billy, but Teddy was the one I really wanted to wrap my head around and try to figure out like, what is he going through now as being king of space? What is he looking for emotionally? What does he need? And so that was like the learning experience. I would say that if, you know, Marvel willing, I get to do a follow-up, it would be as Hulkling centric as possible, because I've really fallen in love with him over the course of the story.
I can tell. And can you tell me a little bit about your process when it comes to writing the scripts? Like,
Yeah.
where do you start? And sorry, I'm
So
just this
no,
is
so
what I
it's
like. I like the nitty gritty.
so I do everything in, you know, kind of outline format. Traditionally, I will write page beats. So I'll be like, on this page, I'll write a paragraph explaining each sentence basically as a panel. For Heroes, a little tricky because we're not dealing in necessarily panels. An Infinite comic for Marvel is roughly the equivalent of maybe like an 8-page or a 10-page comic. And so you don't have the most room in the world either. So a lot of this was going back and forth with my editors, Alana Smith and Martin Biro, and figuring out how to best tell the story economically. Because you don't want to bore people with too much scrolling either, which is a lesson that I've learned in reading a lot of similar works from like the webtoons or Tapa's world. Pacing is incredibly important, and all of that is up to the artist in some ways too.
Marvel's done a lot with Hulkling and Wiccan lately. We got to interview Anthony Oliveira recently, who did kind of the origin of their love story. We've seen them in Guardians. We've seen them in Empire. It's really fun to see queer characters emphasized. And Josh, thanks for taking the reins on that. And I mean, I'll just say as a fan, if you get a monthly book, I would adore seeing what you're able to do with characters like this over time rather than in just a few pages, because you already are doing such beautiful work, even with limited page numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want more chances at North Star, actually. He's the one that surprised me. I was like, he's fun. He has a very distinct point of view, and he's not afraid to tell people it.
So let's, I'm sorry, Daryl, go ahead.
No, yes, I love that. Please give me as many members of Alpha Flight as you want to take on as writer.
Well, I grew up with Marvel trading cards like everyone else, I think my age. And we couldn't get, because we were poor, we couldn't get all the cards. So we were often stuck with like the common cards. And the common cards were always like Vindicator or like Puck. It was always Alpha Flight characters. So I know their stats back and forth. I'm just waiting for the call.
Yes.
I love that. So this is so much fun. Again, we're all like educated professionals doing cool things, but we get to throw out terms like King of Space and have it make sense. It makes me so happy. So with that, let's dive into the issue we are here to review today. We have X-Men number 23. Let's hear your reactions to kind of just the cover initially. We have To Save a City. It says action lovers. This one's for you. Kind of a crazy action sequence. What were some of your thoughts on the cover initially?
Oh gosh, I love this. Sorry, please, Bethany.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's so dynamic and like it's very exciting. Some of the kind of the way it's laid out, it has a lot of depth to it, and some of these covers from this era can be very flat. So I really appreciated that, and also it has like 10 characters on it, just like the way that it's laid out, so as you get a clear view of everyone and everyone's actively doing something. Like it is kind of like a master class on how to just lay out an action sequence.
We tend to either get on these old 60s covers like a really kind of tiered, like here's action, 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 or the characters are all off on the side and then there's like one fight happening in the center. So to see this kind of really fun action panel with everybody having something to do, Marvel Girl as an example is actually using her powers instead of just posing femininely in the corner. There's some really good things there. Daryl and Bethany, what were your thoughts?
Mine was actually very similar to that. I thought it was an interesting collage of superhero powers, and I I like that it's very busy, but it's clear, it's lucid, it's not overly cluttered, and you can see what's happening. It's not they're not pasted all over each other. They're actually dynamic and in a way that is comprehensible. You can understand what's going on, and it's not just thrown together in a jumble. It's not like visual spaghetti.
And the fashion.
Yeah, the fashion.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get over this. Like, there's this scene on when Plant Man is saying my costume, the collage of powers of my costume, and I'm thinking, dude, you you look like you look like a home and garden shop vomited all over your outfit. What's
I really like
Right.
so sometimes covers they're meant to sell the book. And
Yeah.
like you said, Chad, sometimes they highlight things that don't necessarily pay off within the book. We know that this is part 2 of a story, and
Mhm.
we know all of the players already because of part 1, and this is promising a payoff. And this is showing that stuff is going to happen, and it actually does. I don't want to spoil, like 20 pages in,
Yeah.
which will, but I like how accurate this is to the actual story inside, and showing everyone in action, because everyone is in action in the book as well. So
do you feel like the cover prompt of like action lovers, this one's for you, is totally accurate?
yeah, well, I mean, there is action, and then there's Charles sleeping in his chair.
Yeah.
I'm doing.
And the
So
civics lesson.
it's really a spectrum of action if you think of it, with the lower end being none.
Yeah.
The issue itself is a lot of fun. There's a lot of pacing. When we jump onto page 1, I'm going to read through the credits very briefly. It says edited in ecstasy by Stan Lee, written in rapture by Roy Thomas, drawn in delight by Werner Roth, who is using his real name here. He often goes by
Yeah.
Jay Gavin back then. Delineated in depth by Dick Ayers, and lettered in a lawn chair by Artie Steinbeck. I always love how Artie puts on himself. I want to introduce, we've been talking about the professionals a little bit more. Dick Ayers, I'm going to spend just a few seconds on this, is a comic book professional from Marvel that was around for a really long time. He was born in 1924, died in 2014. He worked for DC, he worked for Archie. He's won tons of awards over the years. He's probably most famous for about 10 years. He was the primary penciler on a famous but obscure series called Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. He created a bunch of characters, including Ghost Rider, or co-created. So we see his name in these issues, but I thought I'd just give a little context for him as we jump in. When we open the book, we have Count Nefaria in his castle. He has a dungeon equipped with all kinds of chains and torches. It's very dramatic. There's a metal visor over Cyclops' eyes. Everybody's bound so that they can't use their powers. And he's trying to force the X-Men to work with him in conquering the city of, or excuse me, in working with him as criminals. If they don't, he's going to conquer the District of Columbia and frame them. What were you guys? What did you think about Count Nefaria as a villain in this issue?
I have a question, first of all, and it maybe because I think that Bethany and Josh, you're both creative. I'm very logical. So maybe you can tell me, where in the DC metro area is this castle that Count Nefaria has? Is this in Virginia? Is this Maryland?
I was wondering that too.
There are no mountains.
I misread it the first time, and I was like, there's a castle in Washington, D.C. And I was like, no, it's in the outskirts. It's like, I don't even know. Real estate was different back then.
In Count Nefaria's first appearance in Avengers, which I think was number 13, he is like the richest man in Europe, and he wants to come and start his own mafia, which is called the Maggia here. And so he has his ancestral family castle transported to the United States brick by brick on ships, and then rebuilt in New Jersey. So this is a man who will go to all ends to impress, including building his own castles. So we can assume he put something together just for this plot itself. He's a
Well,
little
there's
over
Maybe
the
it was the
top.
Maybe it was the Biltmore house, Biltmore Mansion. It's
yeah,
like
and
you just took it over.
there was obviously no shipping crisis in the
Oh.
1960s. I mean, they could actually get his castle into port.
Now,
The
Count
thing
Nefaria
that-
is obviously, he's a very like Lex Luthor type villain. He's
Yeah.
non-powered, tons of resources, tons of money. Did you guys like him? Was he an
From a
effective X-Men foe?
non-specified Eastern European country. Like there's it. What country? Like he's. It's not Latveria. It's not Romania. It's a place that
I think canon shows
doesn't
he is
exist
from
as an unnamed
Italy. I think canon shows he's
Italy.
from Italy
Okay.
now. But back then,
Alright.
I don't think they specified it.
I want to say, because he appears in New Avengers, I want to say, and he has a daughter.
Mhm.
But I think the New Avengers go to whatever made up country or city he's in and just like wreck his castle at some point. I do
He's
think
a
he's from
He brought the
fictional
castle back.
universe. Yeah.
he's
So
a
he brought the
huge
castle back.
he's a huge Avengers foe with like Superman level powers now, and his daughter is actually Madame Mask, who's one of Iron Man's biggest foes.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of ties into Marvel history. You guys likely know him later in the X-Men as the villain who is responsible for the death of Thunderbird or John
Yes.
Proudstar. So he does have some prominence here. So as we delve into the issue a little bit, the X-Men absolutely refuse to help them, and he reveals that his big plot is to put a giant force field over Washington, D.C. So this man has come prepared, right? He is going to slowly starve the city of oxygen unless he gets $100 million in response, and he's using illusions of the X-Men to make it appear as if they are complicit in working with him, even though they are chained up in his basement. We get to see on page 2 and 3 a lot of the public's reaction to this, which is it's not something they did in the comics often. People kind of trying to break through the barrier and noticing, planes can't land, cars can't drive through, and it's kind of a credible threat. So let me hear some of your thoughts or reactions to these first few pages where Count Nefaria's plot is becoming prominent.
I wonder if Stephen King read this, because if in his novel Under the Dome, the exact same
Oh.
thing happens. A town in Maine, of course, Maine, is placed under a crystalline dome that nobody can break through, and everybody slowly suffocates.
Yes.
So it had a pop culture influence, I think, perhaps. I noticed that it was incredibly white and incredibly male. I don't think that there's a single female background character. I'm
There
pretty
is
sure the only one. Where did I miss?
She's
Where?
right.
Page 2.
Oh my God.
There's
Okay.
one lady.
Yeah, sorry.
And you
One
know that
lady.
she's a proper lady because she's wearing her gloves.
Gloves, of course. Yeah. There's one. So there are two. There are two female characters in this book. That's astonishing. And no people of color. Yeah.
I appreciated Count Nefaria only monologuing to a degree and then being like, that's all I need to tell you. Bye. Because that shows a level of restraint and calculation that we do not get from a lot of these villains of the era.
And this is also a man who takes a long time to get ready. He likes attention. I mean, look at him.
And I think that the idea of capturing Washington, D.C. just hits a little differently in 2021. When I was reading this and I'm like, oh no, from this perspective is just terrible. And then you get to page 3 and the general's like, we're gonna nuke it. And they're like, maybe that isn't the best idea. Well, let's rethink that strategy because it's
Nuclear war.
working.
Yeah.
But
There's also this delicious image of a firefighter trying to chop into the force field with an axe and saying, I might as well be swinging a strand of spaghetti. I love it. The 60s are nonsense.
Yeah.
As we delve in a little bit more, we see these kind of illusions of the X-Men that Count Nefaria is using because he has this amazing illusion tech. Going to the government and demanding the money, and we get all sorts of anti-mutant thoughts because they're wondering how complicit are the X-Men in all this, and then they just disappear. The sound effects in this issue are amazing. As they disappear, the sound effect is gleep. Gleep.
I actually had a question about that panel.
Yeah.
So one of the security guards or police referred to them as muties, and I haven't read a lot of comics up to this point. Is this the first canonical use of the term?
It's certainly the first time we've noted it out loud in the podcast. I can't say for certain it's the first time it appears in the book. We've certainly seen anti-mutant sentiments in these early issues. I think as early as issue number 4 is kind of when it really starts to kick in. But this may be the first time the term mutie is used, which is like that derogatory term for mutants. Interesting. I'll have to do my research. I'm not confident on that. I don't know. There's a lot of nonsense on these couple pages. Anything you guys wanted to highlight or talk about?
To tie into my probably future award-winning podcast, Two Rivers, Two Takes, we do see Jean trying to use mental powers to undo something that is binding someone and it not working.
Right.
And
yeah,
I liked that she was shown in her own panel using her powers and taking a crack at it herself rather than being background or having to just supplement one of the guys trying to use their powers, like boosting them. She is taking a crack at it herself and it's not working. And
we are finally in an era.
working.
We are finally in an era of the
power.
X-Men where Jean is going to get a little bit more focus. Like she starts to have her own storylines from here forward, and it took long enough.
And it's really smart of Count Nefaria to have put shackles on Beast's feet as well. That was a good attention to detail, that his feet are shackled and no one else's are, but his are because that's his main power.
Yeah, I really loved the fact that the locks were too complicated for Jean to undo, because modern Jean Grey, you could never get away with that.
No.
And I just thought it was just like, Nefaria's really thought this out. Like he has actually hit solutions for a lot of these problems.
We also get when she's trying to undo Beast's feet shackles or fetters, I think they're called when they're on your feet. He's commenting about how it's ticklish, like, oh, you're tickling my feet, which is adorable. I love Beast's feet in all of the 60s. It's my favorite. Bethany and Josh, are you guys big Jean Grey fans?
I've gotten to like her a lot more over the years. My first exposure to her was in the the animated series on TV, and where she's fainting every 5 minutes. And that didn't leave a great impression, but the more I've read and the more I've gotten into it, I like her. I like her compassion, and that's not in evidence at all in these early books.
Yeah, I like Jean to a degree. As I get older, I find myself loving Madeline Pryor more. That's definitely like the hot opinion these days.
Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed Jean's compassion, and I just think of all the X-Men, she gets swept up in the mega plot so often. She never has a chance to breathe or really come to terms with who she is. It's interesting to see her in these older era where her power set is so limited.
I've talked to a lot of people at this point on the podcast, and the census of opinion seems to be everybody hates Professor X and Beast. Everybody loves Cyclops and Iceman. People are ambivalent about the Angel, but when it comes to Jean, you either love her or you hate her. There seems to be like the huge defensiveness in either direction, which is fascinating. I hate her cowl, her little pigtail cowl that's in this issue.
It's awful. It's just, how would that help you? Like if you're fighting somebody, they could just grab it.
What does her hair look like when she takes that off? Like think of what her hair looks like when she takes it off.
Upswing, like a 60s bob.
Yeah, she's got like the bouffant thing, right?
Yeah, like it would be slicked, like stuck to her head and then just bushy. Like
so this is from the next issue.
Yeah.
There's her with no cowl.
Oh, it's different. Yeah, it's like Linda Belcher on Bob's Burgers, only red.
Sure.
Is like.
So we shift scenes over to Professor X, who is very intensely working on a device, which we are soon going to learn. Well, I actually won't say what it is. We're going to come back. I don't want to spoil anything. But he's so intent in his focus here that he's forgotten he has a telephone, apparently, which somehow tells me so much about his character.
Complete mental shield, but you can't unplug the phone. It's
Right?
But he gets a call from General Fredericks, who we actually saw back in issue number 2 and then again 17 of the X-Men. So this is a minor recurring military general who's also in the Fantastic Four a couple of times. Xavier is known as kind of a public expert on mutations. So they're calling him to ask for help because they think the X-Men are behind this plot. And again, I'll just ask all three of you quickly, do you enjoy Professor X as a character, especially in this issue? Are you fans?
I hate him. I hate him.
Yeah.
I
He's
hate him.
egotistical, horrible.
I find him so
Cool.
fascinating though. Whenever he's on
Yeah.
page, I'm
Oh,
like
yeah.
immediately like, what are you planning
Riveted.
now, Xavier? This issue in particular, he's like pulling a double whammy on everyone until the
Yeah.
very end.
Daryl?
How many of your students have you murdered today?
Right. I really don't like him. I also made the note of him being surprised by his phone. And for the kids there that aren't aware, before cell phones, the silent feature for your phone was just unplugging it from the wall. And in that way,
Oh,
no one could reach you.
in China,
It's the equivalent of do not disturb on an iPhone because no one can get through. And he explains how he prepared himself so he could concentrate, but forgot about the phone. Like, I shut down my mental connection to the student so I could just focus on this because they're on a holiday. They have a vacation day. They're fine. Nothing can go wrong. He is a headmaster.
Heather's not here to sing her Charles as a Dick song, but just plug in any of our previous episodes and you could hear it. We also get this very imposing panel of him using his powers. His head is red. It's like a close-up of his forehead with like energy, explosive energy of telepathy coming from inside. It like represents kind of a lot of power for him, which is kind of great, actually.
Yeah, I love this panel.
The X-Men are still back in prison. We see Iceman loosely reference, or is it Cyclops, loosely reference a book called The Prisoner of Zenda. I had to look this up. So apparently in 1894, there was this really famous novel called The Prisoner of Zenda about a fictional country. It doesn't really have any reference here, except it has the word prisoner in it. There's a couple Hollywood films from way back in the day. So if you want to look up The Prisoner of
1940s.
Zenda.
It's really cool. It's actually, like, I mean, it's horrible. It's racist. So racist, but it's fun in a early, Tarzan and the Apes sort of way. Sorry.
Oh no, you're great. How do the X-Men escape their shackles? Anyone?
Jean Grey opens his visor and Cyclops' visor, and Cyclops zaps everybody
with the sound effect PFAP, PFAP.
Yeah.
His optic glass always make different sounds.
I didn't notice that. I just came back to look at it.
He's able to free everyone, and then they storm Count Nefaria, but he is already prepared. He is ready to let everyone in Washington, D.C. die unless they just work for him anyway, which again leads to his credence as a villain. Any thoughts on these couple pages where the X-Men are escaping?
I love the art. The color work in this is really amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's really striking. It's got sort of a Giotto feel to it, which is not something I'd say ordinarily about a comic book.
Iceman, in one of the panels, he's like, what's our cut of, he's like, what's our cut? What's our percentage? And like, I can never quite tell with Bobby when he's kidding or like, where's the truth?
We see the Senate. We see Count Nefaria say that the Senate has just voted a special appropriation to be picked up by the X-Men at the expiration of a 3-hour period. Does the Senate ever work this quickly? Oh my God, I feel like whenever there's something in the news, it's like 17 months of decision making.
Well,
Yeah,
I will give a plug for the Senate in 1966 because the president of the Senate back then was a fellow Minnesotan, Hubert Humphrey.
Ooh.
He knew how to move business forward. I would have to look up who the majority leader and whip were at that point, but I have a feeling since they're all trapped in a dome, LBJ is probably like, Humphrey, get over to the Capitol, get something done. because LBJ was too busy intimidating people within the actual White House at that point. So
Yeah. And peeing in plants.
yes,
Sorry.
I think that he probably got it done. And they're in a time crunch. They want to get out of this bubble. They don't want to be stuck there. They have things to do. They have to make horrible life decisions and
drink and beat their wives.
they have think of how many cigarettes are being smoked in Washington, D.C. during this crisis. Smoke is really trapped inside.
The lead fuel, the lead gasoline.
So on page 7, we are reminded that Count Nefaria has a bunch of villains working for him. Josh, let me turn the time over to you for just a second. Give me your hot takes on these 5 amazing 60s villains.
I'm madly in love with Porcupine. I love what looks like the straw coat he's wearing. It might just be the coloration of the panels I'm looking at. Scarecrow is I dig Scarecrow. I'm wondering if this is the same Scarecrow that ends up like terrorizing the Avengers much later on.
Yeah, he's like a Ghost Rider, demonically powered serial killer now in the comics. Yeah,
because I know the Punisher kills him, I think, during Civil War, and then he comes back as a demon or something. So
with his crows.
I don't know if he uses the crows anymore.
I hope those crows had a good life.
Yeah,
because he doesn't look like he treats them well.
No. Well, they're very intelligent, and they live about 40 years. They might still be alive.
Ooh.
No,
Chad, get the crows in for the next episode.
Of them, the eel was the one I think I have no familiarity with whatsoever.
So the porcupine is currently
the silicone suit.
So the original. Josh. The original Porcupine, Josh, I don't know if you're aware, I used to work on the Marvel handbooks, so I know lots of obscure shit.
That's awesome.
The original Porcupine is Alex Gentry. He dies in the Captain America comics, and then another villain in the early 2000s takes on, his real name is Roger Gawking. He's kind of a bit villain, but he ends up becoming the boyfriend of Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman. And kind of the like stay-at-home dad for her baby Gerald. They recently broke up in the new Spider-Woman issues, but so Spider-Woman dates the new Porcupine for a while, which is kind of fun.
Why would you take over that role? Like, super suits must be so easy to get. Like,
so Josh,
haystack man.
If you were going to pitch to bring back the original Porcupine from the dead, how would you do it?
Gosh, he needs powers, right? Because he's just like a gimmick man right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know about his inner life. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. Like, is he madly obsessed with porcupines? Is it more like the Porcupine's Dilemma, where he's kind of like
bitten by a radioactive porcupine?
Yeah, he can't get close to people.
He actually is. He's a military weapons designer who designed this suit to be used in combat, but when all of the military men laughed at him, he decided to just wear it himself and become a criminal. And he looks like he's covered in straw, but those are actually quills. And the most unfortunate thing about Porcupine back then is he has this like harness on his belt, and that's how he controls the quills and what they fire. So his hands are kind of always at crotch level, which is really unfortunate. And we're going to see that in a little while. The other major unfortunate thing is the unicorn, who's wearing something called a power horn that just looks like a penis on his head. There's just no other way to phrase it. He's kind of the leader of this bunch. Did you guys like the unicorn?
I felt sad for him.
Josh, what was that?
Oh no, I love I love costumes like this. Like the more outlandish, the better. The unicorn is actually surprisingly like a powerhouse of this group, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. This is not the Iron Man villain unicorn, or is it?
It is. No, we just plugged Christopher Cantwell's series Iron Man, and Unicorn's a current villain in that series, actually. So it's the same unicorn. There have been other unicorns because why not? But yeah, he's a current Iron Man villain. So we flip back to the villains. They are all preparing to betray Count Nefaria, of course, because there's $100 million on the line, and all of these men are extraordinarily narcissistic. But we see Professor X kind of interacting with the military who are asking him questions on what to do. He basically says, let me think for a minute. He projects his astral self out of his chair, and all of the military guys think he's sleeping. They're like, oh, our mutant expert's gone to sleep. Too much excitement, I guess, because he's just sitting there comatose. I mean, I would think the same thing. And then Professor X projects his astral self kind of through to Count Nefaria's headquarters, where he can see what is going on. Thoughts on these interactions with Professor X and the military?
I was just focused on his chair, on his wheelchair. How does he propel it? Like, my mom is a wheelchair user, and the wheels are designed to, to be self-propelled. And this one is one of those wheelchairs that requires somebody to push you.
Yep. And
So
we
I'm
see
just
that
wondering, is there
later
someone
in
always
this
on
movie.
panel? Yeah. Oh, I know. We
Yeah.
see it later on. He asks somebody to push him, but like, I'm just wondering if he's got like secret motors
There's a
or
little-
secret.
It also looks like it's made out of wicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those wicker beach, Victorian beach wheelchairs.
This is a very it's giving me, I think it's the Disney movie Pollyanna. Someone is in a wheelchair.
Oh, Secret Garden, maybe. Secret Garden.
Oh, Secret Garden. He stole this
Kid in the
wheelchair
wheelchair,
from the Secret Garden. And
Colin wants it back. Colin called. Wants it back.
I'm not surprised that Professor X is being a creep and wandering through someone's house in his astral form.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like he's allowed to as long as he's trying to save the day. But yeah, as a standard,
you know that he's sneaking into Jean's room, like at night. Got those cameras everywhere.
which is so unfortunate. The X-Men arrive
at the. I really hate him.
The X-Men arrive at the force field. Bobby pokes his finger in a hole, and it opens up a little passage so they can get through. And then we have a bizarre series of people hiding in bushes. So there's a whole bunch of people. There's a big superhero battle about to fight, but I think there are like 6 or 7 panels of people hiding in bushes, which is in the 1960s when you were gay and you didn't know how to meet people, and you had to go to public parks and try to get somebody's eye and then take them back to the bushes for hookups. And I'm gonna guess that was happening all over Washington, D.C. They whoever drew this knew their bushes very well.
Well, that actually got me because it's all green in this comic book. Washington, D.C. is entirely green, and there's a lot of green space, but it's not like a giant verdant field. Where are these bushes coming from? I suspect, personally, that these bad guys brought the bushes with them. They have Plant Man.
Plant Man
They've
can
seen that he can like grow the bushes. So my theory is that Washington, D.C. is really just like a city, and he's just grown this field. Yes.
The police all think the X-Men are bad guys, right? So they're like opening fire on them. The X-Men kind of stop the police, and then we get a couple of crazy pages of everyone just in a kind of mad hijink battle. Let's start with Josh. Tell me some of your favorite moments from this battle between the X-Men and Count Nefaria's cronies.
My favorite part of the whole thing is probably when the townspeople get involved and they're like, let's start throwing bricks at the X-Men. And the X-Men are like helpless against the situation. And I always appreciate when we get to see a little bit of the real world trying to bleed in and affect what's happening with the mutants. Because usually in modern comics, the humans just get out of the way and let the superheroes take care of it.
And there's a huge juxtaposition because the X-Men are trying hard to protect civilians here, but the Count Nefaria's guys are so willing to harm anyone who gets in their way. Like, we will hurt you. There's a big difference between heroes and villains in that context.
And I have the same note, except have you ever tried throwing a brick a long distance?
Yes.
I mean, throwing a brick through like a window from a sidewalk. Cool, you can do that. They're hitting moving targets that are like a football field away with bricks. So these townspeople, they've been lifting, and they definitely have really good aim as well.
Also, they're just, Beast even says this out loud, or it's Iceman, excuse me. It's just our luck that these guys had to be near a pile of bricks when they started us. There's just this random pile of bricks that civilians start throwing.
In Washington, D.C. Yeah. Right next to the Washington Monument, which is blue for some reason.
Beast goes clambering up the Washington Monument, which is the most phallic penis-like building possible. So he's just scaling a giant dick to get to the top, where Angel has to rescue him. And I think that's all we need to say about that. When you flip to page 11, Unicorn, again, that is the most penis-y hat I've ever seen. And that panel in particular, it's just very unfortunate.
It has a flared base on it.
Yeah, it
could be safely used.
I wonder if anyone has ever cosplayed as Unicorn.
Someone should.
Yeah,
I would not.
I think we should all go to a convention together and choose one of these 5 obscure villains to dress up as. Called
That would be amazing.
You're calling Porcupine?
I call Scarecrow.
I'm a little scared. I need to work out a little more because the eel's suit is a little tight, but I'll go as the eel.
I'll go as Plant Man to cover up things.
Oh, I'll take Unicorn. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna go for it, Josh. I love it. So as we get to the villains attacking civilians, we can see them being kind of cruel. Porcupine is using tear gas. Eel is using electricity. Unicorn is firing some blasts. They are being kind of unkind. There's a moment where the Scarecrow has his crows dive bombing all the civilians, and one of them is like, Alfred Hitchcock got nothing on the Scarecrow, which is a reference to the famous movie The Birds, where birds swoop out of the sky and attack people. What did you guys think of this page?
May I please talk about Sloosh? Sloosh.
We're almost to Sloosh. That's the next page.
We're almost to Sloosh.
Hold Sloosh
I have a note on Sloosh as well.
Okay.
Wait.
Oh, can we talk about Fist when Porcupine releases his gas? Fist.
Yeah, Fist.
So yeah, Porcupine's sound effect as he releases gas is FSST exclamation point. I think it's a little more of a fst. We've talked about having just an onomatopoeia like ASMR, like reading sound effects from the X-Men book. We also get another
I think it's funny. Frap, the unicorn. It's coming out of his penis hat, and it says Frap, and it's the white stream. And sorry.
Yeah, no, it's very unfortunate.
Like, it's sorry.
And I think my unsung anti-hero is Plant Man with his growing gun.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be super effective. If you look at this panel on page 11, it's like a generalized shot towards some trees, and he has multiple trees responding. So he built a good weapon there. I got props.
There's a lot of really fun hijinks. Okay, we're gonna take just a minute on page 12. Anyone who wants to follow along, please feel free. Let's address the most important panel first. It is by far the grossest panel we can see. The Porcupine is attacking. So everybody's going after this case with the bonds for $100 million, and they're all trying to get it out of each other's hands. And the Porcupine releases liquid cement from his weapons belt. So it's at waist level. It is coming out of him toward a cowering beast. It's a big white murky block panel, and the sound effect, very large letters, is sloosh. Everybody tell me your thoughts about Porcupine slooshing on Beast.
It couldn't have happened to a better X-Man.
If anybody deserves it, it's him.
Yes.
Yeah, Porcupine came ready for sure.
It would have been worse if this were the blue-haired Beast, because then his fur would have been like totally matte from the sloosh.
Yeah. There are times when we are reading into these innuendos, right? But this panel, man, like it is hard to have it be anything but what it is. It's my word. There is also a spot where the unicorn gets called a horn top. Has anyone ever had that nickname in your personal lives? Horn top.
Nothing I'm willing to share on this podcast.
No, I mean, it's
No.
missing at least one vowel. That phrase that may be seen probably frequently on some apps.
I think that's probably fair. The vowel being Y, right? You're referring
Correct.
to
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a vowel, sometimes it's not.
horny top, which I think is implied when you wear a hat like that. You're either compensating or advertising. That's what I think. The whole action sequence here is just hilarious. It really is like very like Scooby-Doo hijinks almost, like people running in and out of doors as they try to grab this case out of each other's hands. We have on the next page, we have a moment where Plant Man says, and I quote, "While you two prattle, I'll get to the root of the problem."
Oh.
And the Beast is personally offended at this dad joke. Like he says, "I'm tripped up and to the accompaniment of a pun yet." I love a good dad joke. If I were Plant Man, it would be constant plant jokes all the time. Leave me
It's one of his
alone.
secret weapons.
It would just go on and on. Does anybody have like just a single favorite moment in this battle?
I think I've already made mine very clear.
Sloosh is your favorite?
Yes, it's loose. I was reading it on my tablet, and I could not stop laughing. I got to that page. I was just like, damn. It's like they had the comics code, right? Like during this time period where they were specifically on the lookout for stuff exactly like that. And it just went right through. Anyway.
The comics back in these days be very wordy, and it was tough to get through. And I appreciated this action sequence because it kept me reading. Because sometimes it can be very text heavy, and it can really slow down my pace as a reader. But the action that they have going on really kept me going and excited about a battle that for multiple pages and could be very boring if it were executed incorrectly.
So the X-Men have to get this case with the bonds and get it back to Count Nefaria. Otherwise, everybody in the city is going to die. So Count Nefaria is involved here because he's creating illusions to distract people. The criminals turn on each other. They're fighting the X-Men, but then the actual military show up and they're fighting both the villains and the X-Men who are trying to get away with this briefcase. So there's a lot of crazy that happens. My single favorite
there's the fake military as well.
Oh, yeah,
the fake military. Yeah,
the
illusions military.
My single favorite moment on these is on page 16. The crows are attacking a group of soldiers, and one man says, "Watch it, these birds are murder." A group of crows is called a murder, and I love a smart pun. Josh, did you have any thoughts on this kind of chaotic sequence here? What did you enjoy?
Oh gosh, there's this bit, I think a little bit earlier in the action sequence where the Scarecrow calls Jean Grey like a costume juvenile delinquent, and he's dressed like the Scarecrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this happens a lot where they're constantly like digging on each other's costumes, but they're all dressed like wacky, characters.
Thematic. Yeah.
On page 16, I want to draw our attention to the fact that the eel has a silicone lubricated costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got that
Make him
bottle of
slippery.
Swiss Navy out and just pumped it over his head and just let it run down for battle.
Yeah, there's a moment earlier when a moment earlier where Iceman thinks, "I want to go put the kibosh on that eel." I think he likes the suit a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are unfortunate villains. They really are really quite terrible. We see Plant Man creating kind of a jungle cover to allow the military to force the military back, and then Porcupine, Plant Man, Eel, and Scarecrow all run off panel, and we do not see them again. I don't think ever in another X-Men book ever. I'd have to really do my research there. Count Nefaria comes back, but I think these guys are gone.
Yeah.
Are you gonna miss them?
I'm surprised they don't show up again. I'm also surprised they don't have like a team, like a group name, because they're relatively effective as a team. But I guess they all go, the Beatles break up eventually.
I suppose we could call them the Magia, right? They're trying to form the Magia for Count Nefaria, but yeah, there's no name. Now they all appear in other books, right? But I don't think these characters ever make it back to the X-Men again.
Josh, this is a great opening for you. I mean,
Oh, don't tempt me.
You could do it.
This
That
is
would be amazing.
I'm always pitching Z-list characters, which is my bane. It works against me more often than not. I'm like, what about a porcupine story? And they're like, Josh, we have to sell comics.
But what if you put the porcupine back with his original team?
Getting the band back together.
The nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, they are not.
No.
I mean, Josh,
they're not even the Animen.
Most of them aren't mutants.
No, none of them are mutants.
Oh, none of them are
None
mutants.
of them. They're pretending to be mutants.
Josh, if you had
to,
if you had to give this villainous team a name, what would you call it?
Oh gosh, the Magia is good. I like. They're going after money. They're just like greedy, right? There's like, I don't know. They're like the penny loafers or something like that.
Ooh.
They're the sticky bandits.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's so many. So we had the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. In Daredevil, we get the Emissaries of Evil, and in the Avengers, the Masters of Evil. I feel like it's the 60s. The word evil has to be in it somewhere. I don't know. I guess we could be original, but yeah, everybody was evil back then. They were advertising how evil they were.
Money isn't the root of all evil.
Love of it.
The unicorn, however, has escaped and is hiding in another bush because, you know, if you have a penis hat, you should definitely be in the bush with a briefcase.
And this was a good thing to do at 4 a.m.
And then, you guys, we've told some really fucking weird Professor X stories so far, but we have the weirdest Professor X story yet. And I want to keep you posted here. We have seen him use a battle wheelchair, spelunking in a cave, hunting people. We have seen him blow up helicopter after helicopter, but he has apparently designed himself a walking suit. Now, this suit only appears 4 times. This is the first, where he is able to walk by using robotic legs. He wraps himself up kind of like the Thing does in the Fantastic Four by covering his full face, eyes, and head, and wears a trench coat. And he's seeking to get in with Count Nefaria, despite the fact that this man can project his brain, his telepathic brain, into space. Apparently, he needs this disguise to get into Count Nefaria's headquarters. What are some of your thoughts on Professor X's walking suit and disguise?
He looks like Michael Jackson rolling into the Caesar's gift shop at 4 a.m. wanting to buy his 3rd sarcophagus for his collection.
Yeah, he's about to buy some Elephant Man bones for sure.
Yeah, he is.
He looks like the Invisible Man, who will appear invisible unless you cover every inch of skin.
He's just stalking Jean Grey again. That's all. He's like.
Now, in a couple of episodes, we're gonna have. In a couple of episodes, we're going to have a special guest on where we're going to really focus in this conversation on Professor X as his portrayal as a person in a wheelchair and have a conversation about ableism. So we're going to bring this suit back up.
Good.
This is just nonsense. this whole scene, and it gets worse next issue, by the way.
This Professor X knows what you did last summer, and
he's going to murder some folks. Okay, so Jean Grey runs back into Count Nefaria with the bonds. Count Nefaria thinks he is getting the bonds, but Professor X is fucking with his brain because that's what you do. And they have to convince him to finally kind of lower the dome. Count Nefaria then tries to escape on a ship, but the unicorn is flying in. And these 2 villains kind of ride off into the sunset, and then the bonds disappear from in front of them because it was all an illusion in the first place. We also get this nonsensical reveal of Professor X pulling off his disguise like, "It's me, everybody."
Dark man.
Tell me some of your thoughts on these final pages.
Honestly, the ableism got to me because in a sort of profound way that the silliness and the absolute idiocy of it couldn't really cover, but I did love the disappearing suitcase. It was just such a comic book trope. It's absolutely perfect for the book as what it was.
Yeah, the mechanical legs are definitely pretty wild, especially because this issue goes out of its way to like emphasize Professor X's lack of mobility. He astral projects, he takes a nap.
Yes.
And then suddenly, I was shocked by the reveal here. Because there are so many well-known hobos in the Marvel Universe at this time. Like it could have been Namor or something, but Professor X has the technology, I guess, to fix his own problems.
He's a flair for the dramatic that we don't often see.
And you can see that on page 19 where he's like, oh child, they don't have that money. Let me light my pipe and explain to you. Just the hubris that Professor X exhibits.
It's really, really very ridiculous. Count Nefaria will not be back in the books during the original 60s run. Now, after Claremont takes over the books, he does come back. And again, he's the villain they are fighting, along with the team of evolved animals, where
I loved those guys. The Animen, they were amazing. The frog guy. It's great.
They're from the Daredevil comics in the 60s, and I really love them. But that's the mission in which Thunderbird, John Proudstar, dies, which is quite tragic. And that Count Nefaria has gone on to do a lot of really heinous things. In a recent series about Moon Knight, he actually murdered Echo, who has been resurrected and is now the new Phoenix. But Count Nefaria has some really intense storylines in his future, just not in these original books. Your overall thoughts about his effectiveness as a villain? What did you love most?
His monocle.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. I said his monocle. I'm kidding. I love his thoughtfulness.
No, his like walking stick, his cane, his whole demeanor, quite fabulous. He's a really absurdly capable villain, and as time goes on, I think in the comics he only gets more powerful and more nefarious, as it were. It was a solid plan. I feel like there's an easier way if you're Count Nefaria to get $100 million, but he escaped with his life, so there's something to be said about that.
We get a panel where the unicorn mentions that I'll just quote, he says, "For though my power horn is exhausted, I still possess the strength to wrest this pouch from you." And as someone whose power horn sometimes gets exhausted, I sympathize, unicorn. I understand.
The stamina.
He can.
Sometimes your power horn needs a rest for a while. You can't overextend. Otherwise, there will be too much splooshing. That was a reference to.
I was gonna quote Big Mouth, but decided against it. It's like.
And then we get a surprise twist at the end. Jean Grey has received a letter. We don't know why, but she announces very abruptly that she's going to be leaving the X-Men forever. For those of you, if you've read the next issue, you learn what it is. But any thoughts on what might be happening with Jean here?
I'm just surprised it's not Cyclops leaving the team again.
With his satchel over his shoulder.
Yep.
Off into the sunset.
Having real sad
diddle yet
moments.
another. Yeah.
To be fair,
ruin yet another powerful woman.
Professor X says it's Jean who must decide if we can help her, not we ourselves. He's actually giving Jean the agency to make a decision, which it might be the first time he's ever done that in his entire life.
It's certainly the last. I hate him.
My thought is like, oh my God, we finally get a Jean Grey story. She's been so background for so long and kind of supporting. I feel like everyone, Cyclops hasn't had a lot of attention, frankly, but Jean's been the most underused character this whole series. So it's fun to see her finally get a chance to shine a little bit, which she does in the next issue. And we'll see that next week. We also get the announcement that next issue, they are going to be facing the Locust. We'll be talking a lot about him in our next episode. So before we move forward, if I can hear from each of you, what was your single favorite moment in this issue, and who was your star player? Who was your favorite character? Daryl, are you willing to go first?
Sure. I think my favorite moment and favorite character, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're thinking my favorite moment would be, I think, the battle sequence. It's a lot of fun. It includes all of the main players from that cover, and I think my favorite character, it might be, I don't know, it's a toss-up. I really like all the villains.
Mm.
They were a lot of fun, and they were effective as sort of guest characters in a team book in a way that some villains are very just one and done, and you really don't care because it's just the baddie of the week. These ones that, like Josh said, they were effective as a team. They had their shit together, and it was an effective plan. So it was interesting to see how they really worked together to try to achieve their aims. And it's just too bad that they broke up. But maybe coming soon from Marvel Comics, we have the Penny Loafers. So
Bethany, how about you?
Okay, so you know my favorite moment. I've said it like, I'm sorry. I've got a juvenile mind. I loved the battle scene, and I thought that it was really well constructed and really well put together. And as you said, it didn't take energy. All the characters got an equal focus, and everybody played a role, and I really enjoyed that. I think my favorite character was Count Nefaria. Actually, he's really put together, and I love his style. I love his deep down evil, even if he could have made more money by playing stocks. As, yeah, taking over the Biltmore Mansion is, it's one way to do it.
Oh,
Certainly.
I was going to note, clearly this is in the 60s because he had to have a briefcase of money. If it was now, there'd just be a wire transfer, right?
Yeah, just get some Bitcoin.
Yeah, some NFTs for Count Nefaria.
NFTs, yeah. It's like blockchain's active. He's in Eastern Europe anyway, right? Like you can just get the that's where all the blockchains are. Yeah, I love his sense of style, and I love his monocle, and I love his careful planning and his general evil. He's got some daddy energy too, which I don't mind. But yeah, he's a good character.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah, my VIP, no surprise, is Porcupine. Obsessed with his bizarre bag of tricks, obsessed with the porcupine motif. But I thought this issue was like really interesting in that they're not just because of Count Nefaria, but there's so many misdirections and so many you think it's going to go one way and it veers to the other way, whether it's the action sequence of who gets the briefcase, or it's the fact that the Penny Loafers are turning against Nefaria, or it's Professor X's like a Hail Mary play at the end. There's a lot of like, you legitimately don't know what's going to come next. And I like the kind of overarching threat of the military kind of peeking their heads in every so often. I'm surprised they didn't play up the atom bomb threat even more. Seemed very appropriate for the era.
And then I mentioned this on the podcast last time, but we'll get Josh's reaction live here. In a future issue of Captain America, when Mark Gruenwald takes over in the mid-90s, there is an issue where the Porcupine is trying to give up crime and sell his suit, but they get attacked by some villains. He puts the suit on and he tries to run away, trips and falls, and one of the quills on his own suit pierces his heart and he dies.
Oh my God.
Well, we have to fix that, don't we? But I have a new mission in life. It's to save the porcupine.
Justice for Porcupine. My favorite moment in this issue, I mean, laugh out loud, was just sploosh, right? Plus all the characters hiding in bushes. It just is ridiculous. My star player is Count Nefaria. I think he is actually quite an effective villain. He's an imposing threat despite being non-powered, and you leave this feeling like he's actually pretty credible. Let me capture reactions next week. Oh my gosh, you guys, I get to announce this and I'm so excited. Next week, we're going to be reviewing X-Men number 24, and our guest star is Leah Williams.
Oh, amazing.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm a huge fan of hers. The fact that I'm doing this nerdy little podcast from the side of my house, and I get to talk to people like Anthony Oliveira and Terry Blass and Josh here and Leah. I'm nerding out. The little nerd in me is very happy. Your reactions initially, or live reactions to the cover for X-Men number 24. Where they are facing the Locust. Any initial thoughts?
Looks very ominous for the character.
Yeah, the Locust, because I peeked ahead, but I will say that the Locust does not have this element of maybe mystery to him within the story. But I love this
He's a
cover.
delight.
He is a
And
delight from beginning to end. Issue
A delight,
24 is
yeah.
is a treat.
the title is The Plague of the Locust. Come on. That doesn't draw you in. And the teaser panel that they have at the end of this week's story, where they just have a picture of him, and he has a very strong chin. So enough for it to really poke out from that costume and be prominent. So I'm interested to see and read ahead to see what the Locust is up to.
I'm going to be so bold as to say, and if you follow our podcast, we've covered a lot of nonsense. The X-Men have faced the Vanisher and Eunice the Untouchable and the fucking Porcupine. The Locust is the weirdest and most obscure, stupid villain in the original run. He's amazing. We're going to talk about
I
him
love
next
his
time.
design though. Like
Yeah, his
the
costume's
design of his face,
cool.
the pokey chin is designed to mimic the face of one of the insects. And I really like that. He's just delightful.
It's a lot. We'll get there next time.
Yeah.
You guys, I get to smile and have so much fun doing this. Thank you all for spending this afternoon with me. I am a big fan of all of yours, but Josh in particular, I'm so honored to be able to sit down and talk with you about the work you're doing. Thank you for being here. So in conclusion, if you guys would each be willing to let us know what we should be excited about coming up. I mean, we had a chance to talk a little bit about this at the beginning, and then where can people find you on social media? Graymalkin Lane is on Twitter at Graymalkin P like podcast, as well as on Instagram under Graymalkin Lane. Feel free to message me anytime. I'm posting content from these issues throughout the week as we go. And as I mentioned, we have some really fun things ahead. Leah Williams is coming up. We have some other amazing guest stars in the near future, and the trial of Hank McCoy is coming up as
Guilty.
Guilty.
I'm looking forward to that.
Guilty.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
We just did
Absolutely
2.5
guilty.
hours. We just did 2.5 hours on the trial of the Scarlet Witch recently, and the Hank McCoy preparation is eliciting an entirely different emotional response from me than the Scarlet Witch did. But we'll get to that soon. Daryl, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find my podcast account on Instagram under Two Rivers, Two Takes, and my personal page is linked from there, as well as my partner. So be sure to follow all three. You'll see a lot of just random content about my pet bunnies and board games on my personal account. So with a general sprinkling in of comic stuff as I'm going through random issues of everything and taking pictures of it and remarking about just how ridiculous it can be or how great it can be.
And Bethany, how about you?
So I am on Twitter, but I'm not very active on it. You can primarily find me on the Comic Watch website, where I publish my weekly column, and on the Parthian website. I'm also on Facebook. I've got a professional account on Facebook, and a personal account, which is mostly pictures of my son and stuff about life in China. I'm really excited about the new book. The new book is launching in America in December, actually. So it came out in Wales in June. So not just Wales, obviously, the UK and Europe, but it's coming out in America in December. So I'm really excited. We're going to have another marketing push. So it'll be fun.
And Mr. Josh.
Yeah, you can find me online at Lost His Keys Man. That's on any social media platform. And I live up to the name, don't you worry. Let's see, Hulkling and Wiccan is happening all month long in November on Marvel Unlimited, so definitely check that out. And I've got some stuff that hasn't been announced on the horizon from the big two, but nothing with the Porcupine yet.
Oh.
We will be watching for your Porcupine news. You guys, what a good looking and entertaining and educated group of people we are. This was so much fun. Thank you for being here. I had a blast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll see you guys back next week on Graymalkin Lane, and have a beautiful Saturday or whatever day you're listening to this on. We'll talk soon.